God created the earth, but the Dutch created the Netherlands. We have been told the story of Dutch mastery of nature, the fighting against crashing waves, tides, and winds, that we carved out our lands from the sea, a continuous battle of cunning man against nature's ruthless aggression. But the story of these lands feature another wet historical character. What would it mean if we include peatlands or wetlands into our collective memory? if we squelch rather than crash. Mostly covered under water or hidden in between the reeds, we have not yet learned to notice peat. Or maybe we just have forgotten what it looks like. The Netherlands used to be covered in large areas of peatlands, fenlands or laagveen in the west, and raised bogs or hoogveen in the east. Only a fraction of healthy peatlands still remain in this country. Most of the peat in the Netherlands has been dug up, dried out, or rendered invisible under the foundations of our cities. Its spectral scars are still visible in our landscape. In this show, I invite you to come along in my research into the relation between the Dutch and their peatland, and how to use art to help make this relation one of combined flourishing instead of mutually assured destruction. I will tell stories of the peat and let the peat itself have a word through an interwoven soundscape. I will try to divide the episodes thematically based on history or based on themes I want to discuss. And I will try to incorporate sounds of the peatlands that I'm talking about that day. I'll still have to see how this will work out logistically, but I'll make an effort. And maybe also some squelchy sound experiments might find their way into your speaker or headphones, because I'm still in the experimental phase of how to work with this sound, and where I strike the balance between something more fun or something more elaborate versus something more clean and more quote-unquote pure. So, because I'm taking you along with my research, it's not done yet, and I'll share these little experiments. In this first chapter, I'd like to introduce the research I'm doing, introduce peatlands, and give you a bit of an introduction to what I'll be doing in the following months. So I hope you enjoy. Leading me through this research, I choose Donna Haraway as my guide. In the Companion Species Manifesto, published in 2003, she sets forth a theoretical framework to approach relations between humans and more than humans, and provides a language for talking about these relations. Although in this text she uses dogs as her companion species, the framework can be applied to rice, bees, tulips, intestinal flora, as she says herself. And I think it can be applied to peatlands as well. The first move we need to make is to think about what Haraway calls nature culture. She uses this term to describe and redefine the relation between nature and culture. Nature culture rejects the nature/culture divide that is so naturalized in our Western and modern society. Haraway sees the relation between nature and culture rather as a web of relations that co-constitute the other and the self, which do not exist as a priori categories. Nature makes culture and culture makes nature. Because of this continuously contingent becoming, Haraway underlines how nature cultures are inherently historically specific. The term opens up a new understanding of the world around us and humanity's place in it. It underlies a sense of codependency that radically undermines humanity's understanding of itself as a master or guardian over nature. Instead, it necessitates care as a form of mutual survival. So now we've made the move to think not only in terms of the Dutch and Pete, but think about our entanglement and the way we have shaped each other and a new way to see our relations. Within this constellation of nature cultures are relations between what Haraway calls companion species. Like humans and dogs, companion species are ever co-constituting and co-evolving with interwoven histories and biologies. Haraway uses dogs as an example here, exploring the histories of human-canine relation, but also how the two shaped each other throughout time. For example, the domestication of dogs led to a change in biologies and behavior of both canine and human. Companion species are both different but connected. They are in a relationship of what Haraway calls significant otherness. Although different, they are intertwined and open-ended, quote, neither walls nor parts, end quote. To be in a relationship of significant otherness is to acknowledge and work with, quote, non-harmonious agencies and ways of living that are accountable both to their disparate inherited histories and to their barely possible but absolutely necessary joint futures, end quote. Thus, the concept of companion species does not flatten out any conflicts of interest that arise between companion species, but instead opens up a way of living together in a way that both honors difference but also acknowledges dependence. That is why Haraway calls for an ethics and politics committed to the flourishing of significant otherness in his manifesto. Acknowledging our companionship with the peat, especially in the case of the Dutch, is a necessity for both our future survival. Understanding and analyzing the Dutch relationship to peatland as one of companion species allows for perspective and framework of analysis that goes beyond the paradigm of easy dualisms. It implicates us with each other, including myself as a Dutch researcher. Through looking at the shared histories that formed the two of us companion species, and how they have formed us not only in word but in the flesh, we can start looking at ways in which we can flourish in our significant otherness. People have lived around with and in peatlands for a long time in the Netherlands. Yet the story of peat in the Netherlands is shaped by a relationship of extraction, taking the form of either draining or cutting. During the Grote Ontginning, in the 10th and 13th century in the Netherlands, The need for arable land called for the drying out of the wet peatlands to create lands that could be worked on. Digging the drainage channels, the water left the earth. This transformed the area between the coast on the west and the hills in Utrecht, what is now called het Groene Hart or the Green Heart, into what we now call Veenwijnlandschap or peat meadow landscape. After a timber shortage in the Middle Ages, peat became an important source of fuel. The peat would be cut from the landscape and laid out to dry to become turf. This would for a long time heat people's homes and heat their meals. But in the 19th century, peat cutting took an industrialized turn, leading to large-scale peat extraction, especially in the east of the Netherlands. And here, peat colonies were founded. And after that, as the coal mines in Limburg came up and the use of gas increased, the need for turf decreased, leaving behind a landscape with rectangular scars. Next, I invited my friend Julian for a conversation about peat to help you, the listener, get a bit more familiar with what peat is, what it exists from, the different kinds, but also the different methods of preservation and the current issues and thoughts we had about what peatlands and peatland conservation looks like right now in the Netherlands.
Hi, my name is Juliana Donovan. I'm originally from Ireland and I just completed my master's in sustainable development where I did my thesis on peatland restoration monitoring. So I studied specifically peatlands in the Netherlands and I compared a restored peatland to a not restored piece of peatland where they'd done a novel restoration technique on the restored one. And I measured vegetation cover after 20 years to see how the vegetation had recovered on the restored piece rather than the
Mm.
unrestored piece. So yeah, my background on peatlands is quite niche in that area since I mostly know about Dutch peatlands, but yeah,
That's
I
what
really
we
like them.
need.
Yes, peat. So yeah, that's me.
Yay! Thank you so much for coming on to explain a bit. Um, would you like to maybe explain, like, very shortly, how you would define peatlands?
Me and the specific peatlands that I study, which are above ground rainwater fed peatlands, I guess I would define them as these nutrient dense ecosystems where you have sphagnum moss as the main builder of the peat matter. And this is a plant moss that uh, grows and then dies and sinks down into the peat, and you get layers and layers of this moss building up, creating these really carbon rich soils in peatlands. There are also highly waterlogged areas, and it's not the most biodiverse. They don't have a lot of different vegetation, but they have very specific vegetation unique to these areas, which makes them really important and interesting in their own right. So for my area of studies, that is what I see a peatland as.
What's your favorite? Because that's a raised bog, right?
Yeah, that's a rose bog.
What's your favorite plant?
Oh, probably the
Yeah.
sundews, which are, yeah, I think you hear that a lot. These little, yeah. But oh, what's there's a specific word in English for these type of
Carnivorous?
plants? Sorry, which?
Carnivorous?
Yes, carnivorous, thank you. Yeah, so I think they're just very cool. And also in the peatland I study, there's cotton grass, which,
Yeah.
yeah, and it was not it was blooming at the time I was there, so the little yellow flowers out, but then when they mature more, you get these little poofs of white kind of cotton looking
Yeah.
material on the top, and they're very fun. They remind me of trees from the Lorax
Yeah.
book, like mini
That's so
versions.
true.
So I also like those.
Yeah, and they also kind of are like a marker. Like if you see them, you can be like, ah, beneath there's
Yeah, exactly.
graffiti going on.
They're very obvious.
Yeah.
So yeah, and of course Spectrum is fun.
Yeah. Love
Yeah,
spectrum. Yeah. And
it's a
could
cool
you
one.
could you also, because I know it's not your area's expertise, but explain a
Mm.
bit about fens, like what we would call laagvee?
Yeah, fens are more. Yeah, waterlogged areas, and they have water flowing through them. So bogs more the water is rain fed and it just kind of sits there and it'll sink down through the bog, of course. But fens have more water flowing through, so they're kind of more connected to rivers, I'm pretty sure. And you'll also have unique, more like kind of reeds and more river associated plant life along them. Also, a lot was in the Netherlands
Mm-hmm.
previously before they were drained. So the whole like north of the Netherlands was huge
Yeah.
peat and fen areas. The fens a bit more south, kind of around I think where the Maas and the Rhine,
Yeah.
yeah, were flowing out, and
Yeah.
you would have had these fen areas. So yeah, that's my distinction for the
Yeah.
two.
like different water supplies. One is like
Yeah,
groundwater and river
river
flows, and
water.
one is through rainwater.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
What makes peatlands so hard to restore is that they
Mhm.
took thousands of years to form, even like a couple of centimeters of soil. And building that back just takes so long. Even the one I studied after 20 years, the amount of sphagnum peat moss was not that high
Yeah,
still.
you really need to do a lot of work for it to.
Yeah, like just so much damage was done to these ecosystems and they take so long to form. Yeah, it's kind of crazy to think like
This,
when I really started getting into the science of peatlands, you think about other things, you think about forest, and you're like, yes, tree grows or um yeah, like a meadow, oh, the grass and the flowers grow, but peatlands the soil is like the amazing part of the peatlands, this huge store of carbon that's grown up from thousands and thousands of years. And it takes no time at all for people to
yeah,
drain it and cut it away, which is just like crazy.
the temporal like dimension of this whole issue is
Yeah. Yeah,
so crazy
it
to
can be
see.
gone, yeah, in no time. And it's just like, oh, whoa. And people
Yeah,
didn't even realize what they were cutting
right?
away. They were just like, this is a great field. This is a great, once it's drained, it's a very fertile soil for
Yeah,
planting or for feeding cows on. And they didn't think yeah, cut away thousands of years of
yeah,
carbon storage and
yeah.
plant growth. It's like, ah. But what we were happy to see was the amount of invasive grasses was a lot less.
Oh, that's
So there's one grass type called Millennia, which grows a lot on peatlands and it thrives because of the nitrogen deposition
mm,
from agriculture. Nitrogen deposition is a huge issue in the Netherlands. And so when these areas get re-wetted, then Millennia thrives. It pops up all over the place. So then they were trying these novel restoration techniques to get rid of Millennia. So we saw that that had decreased in the study area. So that
yeah,
was good to see and positive that when you get rid of Millennia, then it opens up a space in the ecosystem
yeah,
for sphagnum to thrive a bit more because it overshadows these like water pools and little niches where sphagnum could grow.
yeah.
So yeah, that's a bad one.
So it's not simply re-wetting. You actually have to like really care for the soil and like this ecosystem, the biodiversity.
Yeah, for sure. Like it's they think a lot of sometimes it depends on the peatland how degraded it was, how cut over. But yeah, oftentimes just re-wetting doesn't do the job, especially if these areas were used for agriculture in any way. There's still a lot of nitrogen in the soil, and that encourages all sorts of unwanted plants to grow. So
Mm-hmm.
it's very interesting to see the current research going on in different techniques, both in Ireland and the Netherlands and all over the world, that people are trying for solving this issue. So the technique they used on the peatland I studied was they went in and they flipped the top soil over,
Yeah,
and that then drowned the Millennia plants, and they started to decompose and rot away, and
yeah,
that opened up a niche for the sphagnum moss to grow. In other places, I've seen them trying to kind of feed the system with sphagnum moss where you place it in and encourage it to grow. Um, yeah, and there's lots of interesting stuff like my old supervisor is doing with like having special what are they called? Kind of these mats, these like 3D printed mats that then you create the best growing environments for sphagnum, and you have kind of these little sphagnum seedlings. But yeah, It's
And
interesting the techniques they use.
oftentimes when people talk about peatland restoration, or when they try to sell it, it's like,
Mm.
oh, you reread it, or like as like really a small, you can do this in small compartments, but actually you
Yeah,
need like this whole system, like change to stop this nitrogen to really have
yeah,
actually like worthwhile peatland restoration.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So certainly in other areas you can just re-wet. It really depends on how long the peatland has been used for, what condition it's in. But I think most in the Netherlands have been so drained that yeah, just re-wetting with the levels of nitrogen that are currently in the soil isn't going to cut it. So the peatland I studied, when you go up there, only a very small part of it has had this novel restoration work done. They're still studying the impacts. But it looks kind of like a like safari grassland, because the Millennia is yellow at certain times of the year, and yeah, it's just kind of bizarre looking
Yeah.
landscape where it's like, oh yeah, this is a peatland. And you're kind of like, oh, it's very,
Where?
very grassy, kind of expecting like a giraffe to wander past or something. But yeah, it can be a bit more labor intensive than is sold, but of course you want to be like, oh, it's an easy thing to
Yeah,
do. And in some cases, kind of even re-wetting the land does help though.
yeah,
So what they're trying to encourage in the area I studied is to bring it back to peatland ecosystem, peatland dynamics of carbon capture and storage.
yeah,
But even now in the drained areas, they are releasing carbon. When you drain them, the plant matter stored in the peatland starts to decompose, it starts to release carbon. So even just re-wetting them
yeah,
is positive, and it might not return to the peatland dynamics that we would like to see, but it can just stop that carbon
yeah.
release, which currently in the global state of things is
It's
very
good.
good.
Yeah, yeah,
And then later, maybe when there's money or time, it can be put into bringing it back to a healthy peatland state.
yeah.
Yeah,
For now, that's like just a stop on the worst that's happening.
exactly. Yeah, it's just like we need to stop emissions.
Yeah,
Rewetting does that, and then we can figure out like what's the best next step.
I was also like maybe trying to discuss this, but I think I found it a bit hard to do it in a good way
Mm,
because I was thinking about how now a lot of also these advocates for peatland restoration, it is a lot, and like this idea of it is like one an easy fix, but also with the carbon sequestration, that is like something to almost gain, or like a profit mechanism in a way, how it's talked about.
yeah,
And then I was thinking that if we continue to have that same mindset, that mindset of profit and like what it can do for us,
yeah,
will that be productive in the end? Because I get that for now it is very productive if we talk about it like that.
yeah,
In the long term, do we need a change of mindset that's deeper
yeah,
in order to really have like appreciate its intrinsic value?
yeah. No, for sure. At the moment, I'm working as a volunteer for an organization called Wetlands International, and they do some great work with peat. And currently they're in the process of working to a peatland breakthrough, and it's a very kind of, oh, how would you phrase it? Yeah, this more business minded side of environmental stuff, and like they like they love peatlands and they're working to restore peatlands, but it's how do you sell it to countries and companies and business, not in a way like we know peatlands are great, we know they're
Yeah.
beautiful, we know their intrinsic value, but we want to save them. And in this world we live in capitalist societies where it's very much like, okay, well, what's the worth of this? Like, can you put a number on it?
Yeah.
So one of the things they're doing is kind of packaging peatlands almost in a way as this nature-based solution,
Mm.
where it's like, this is a peatland, this is why it's good, this is why it's really useful, and this is why it's handy for you to re-wet it and restore it. It's really good for your carbon capture. It's going to stop releasing carbon. It's going to look great for your uh your Paris 15 agreement and your nature-based solutions and your offsetting. And yeah, it's kind of this weird mindset you need to get into where it's like, yeah, I want people to love peatlands. I want people to go out and appreciate them from a distance because you might fall in. Um, but yeah, to convince the people that are going to make these changes, the governments and the businesses to invest money in these things, you have to sell them in a certain way. And yeah, it feels really wrong. I think with any nature, it feels wrong to have to really sell it and talk about its value in like monetary terms
Yeah.
or yeah, carbon emission terms. When it's like we should just intrinsically appreciate and protect these areas. So yeah, it's kind of a hard one to square. Like I'm on the side of it just because I see how businesses think and work,
Yeah.
and it's very profit based, monetary based. And like I used to work in a bank before I moved to the Netherlands, and like that it was about the bottom line. It's about like how are we making money, and they were involved in sustainable initiatives and did sustainable stuff, which was great, but it was definitely more because they had to. I think they had to tick
Yeah.
these boxes, they had to get this stuff done, and like that's how they think. It's like, okay, how does this add to um yeah, how we're helping customers and how we're making money, and does it yeah meet the sustainability
Yeah.
my goals I've set for myself and told my customers I'm going to do, or the government has set for us. Um, so yeah, it's a weird one. It feels sad to try and package up peatlands and sell it as a
Then if it
nature-based
works.
solutions.
Yeah.
But if it works, it works. Like that's at the
Yeah.
end of the day, like you want to protect these areas and you want them to stop being drained and to be re-wet and looked after. And if this is the pathway to get there, like
Yeah.
I guess that's it. And then afterwards, maybe we can start
Yeah.
working on intrinsic value and the more art and culture side of
Yeah.
these areas. Because there's like really interesting work happening in that
Yeah.
also.
Thank you a lot for coming on to talk a bit about your peat
Of
knowledge.
course. Thanks for having me. I hope I was able to explain things well. My
Hmm.
knowledge, of course, is very specific, so
So it
take
helps a lot.
everything
It's
I
way
say with
more
a grain of
than my knowledge about like this the how do you say like the more biological or ecological like aspect of it. close off this introduction episode, I wanted to tell a bit more about how I came into this research. The fen billows under my feet as we all jump on it, giggling like kids in a bouncy castle. Our feet are wet but not muddy, as we walk through the intricate layers of vegetation in various states of life and decay. In our hands are enlarged photos of rare fen vegetation. We cannot find them because our brain is not trained to look for them, so we leave it to the forest guard. Instead, I try to linger in the feel of the fen. The smells, the sounds, the touch all allow me to come closer to it. This is a description of my first introduction to peatlands. During the summer school of the master I'm doing, it's gender studies, we went out to visit the peatlands. And it was such a magical moment and such a sensory experience that really, I don't know, it really created a bond with peatlands. And ever since I've been really fascinated with it.
At the end, I wanted to end with a bit of a wild card, and this is me playing with a synthesizer, a Behringer Edge analog. I think it's semi-modular synthesizer, and I think it's really interesting how from this electronic instrument that's like it's pure electronic signal that gets influenced and distorted, how you can get actually quite organic sounds. And yeah, I thought it's interesting because I kind of heard the peat inside of the synthesizer sounds of or the sequencing. And yeah, maybe this is just what happens when you listen to peat too long. And then you hear it everywhere, so maybe it's not a good sign. But I wanted to share it. I'm not a DJ, so please don't come for my lack of skills. But it's just really fun to play with these things. So I thought I'd share it as what we would call in the Netherlands a toetje at the end. So yeah, I hope you enjoy.
thank you so much for listening to the first chapter of this series. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you listen again the next time. Bye.